Hello everyone, welcome to our next lesson. Today we're going to be looking at the trigonometric functions. We're just going to focus on the sine function for now, and then in class we could look at the cosine function and even the tan function. So what we are going to be doing is just looking at the basic sine function and then looking at some transformations that we could do to our sine function. So our sine function looks like this. Typically, it has an amplitude of 1, meaning from the middle to the highest point, the height is 1. And it has a period of 2 pi, meaning that it takes 2 pi before we start doing the cycle again. So this is 2 pi, and then we do another 2 pi, so that's 4 pi, and we keep going 2 pi's. And it can go both ways to the negative as well on the x-axis. So, what kind of transformations can happen to your sine function? Some of the transformations that can happen is we've got this form where we've got the letter A, B, C, and D. And what these do is the following. The A affects amplitude, affects how high or if it's going to be stretched out. The B determines the period, whether it's going to be a period like this or a period that goes a little bit longer and is more stretched out on the x-axis. The C shifts the graph to the right or to the left, and the D shifts the graph up and down. So let's just look at a couple examples so you get more familiar with it. So for instance, what happens if you have y equals 2 sine pi x plus 5? Well, we already know what our basic shape is. Our basic shape is, this is your sine function, where this is 2 pi, and it goes between 1 and negative 1. So if we're looking at this, this is your b value. And your b value determines or helps you determine what your period is. So for this, your period is equal to 2 pi divided by b. And for this case, our b is pi. So 2 pi divided by pi, so our period is 2. And that means our period now is not 2 pi, but it's 2. Other pieces of information, this is 2, so our amplitude is going to be 2. Meaning it's not going from 1 to negative 1, but it's actually going from 2 to negative 2. And our last piece of information that's given is this plus 5. This is your d value, meaning that your sine function is going to be moving up by 5. So if I had this point, which is at 2, y equals 2, and I move that up 5, I am not a maximum of 2, but I'm now at a maximum of 7. The middle point of your graph that was at 0 is now moved up to 5. And your lowest point is not negative 2, but is now at 3. As you can see, our amplitude is still 2, so that's all good. And we've just drawn y equals 2 sine pi x plus 5. Sometimes we give you questions where we give you the drawing and you have to come up with the equation. So for instance, below we've got a graph here. We can see the period is pi. We see it's going from a maximum of 8 to a minimum of 2. So we would know that the middle of 8 and 2, well, if the minimum is 2 and the maximum is 8, there's this difference of 6. So we would be going up 3, so that would be 5. 8 plus 2 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, so let's look at some of the things. Well, the amplitude. What's the amplitude? Well, how high is it going? It's going an amplitude of 3. So y equals 3. We're going to make this a sine function. Your b value. Your b value is what we're trying to figure out next. Well, the period we see is pi. So pi is your period, is equal to 2 pi divided by b. And therefore b is equal to 2 pi divided by pi. and therefore your period or your b value is 2. Have we shifted over? Oh, we have shifted over. If you notice this, the sine function started at 0, 0. If we look at this one, so we're just looking at this one, it starts at 0, 0. But here it doesn't start at 0, 0. It's actually been shifted over all the way to here. So we need to figure out how much is it shifted over to the right. Well, if this is pi, then in the middle would be pi over 2. That would be pi over 2. And the middle of those two, which would be this point, would be 3 pi over 4. So it's been shifted over by 3 pi over 4. So what we could do is brackets x minus 3 pi over 4. And last but not least, let's figure out what our d value, how much is it shifted up or down? Well, it was at 0 and now it's at 5. So plus 5. Hope this short video helps you understand the trig functions and all the transformations that can go with it. Have a good day.